Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on?
Welcome back, everybody. The Bacon and Egg Show, a midweek edition, smack dab in the middle of the week. Episode 67, November 3rd, right? Yeah, 3rd, 2021. Days are just blending together. Jay, what is going on?
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, it's a sort of a gloomy, rainy day here in Central Texas, and for a couple of guys that are Astros fans and Longhorn fans, it's kind of an appropriate weather shift for what's been happening. But no, everything's going all right. Let's get this show in. No monkeying around. Let's get it done, and let's just get to it, man.
You're not going to get off the hook that easy, man. It's not going to happen. We're opening the show with just nothing but monkey business. We got to start there. I mean,
yeah, we do.
We can't talk about the Astros. It is what it is. It's, that's something to be addressed a little bit later. The off-season stuff will be interesting to watch, but the big story, maybe the biggest story that we've had revolving around the Texas Longhorn program in a long time. I know we've had coaching changes, we've had big recruiting news, but nothing like this. Nothing like the saga of Jeff Banks, Pole Assassin, and Gia the Monkey. Now, before we dive into the recent happenings here and what's been in the news, loyal viewers of the Bacon and Egg Show will know about Pole Assassin and Gia the Monkey going back way back into the spring when Sarkisian was putting this staff together and he brought Jeff Banks on. We discussed this.
Yep.
And that's what, anybody that is just now hearing about this, well, you've been missing out this entire time. The Bacon and Egg Show has been on top of this story. We maybe didn't predict this, but I think we mentioned on this show before, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
What could go wrong? Pole Assassin, a Jerry Springer Show alum, a pet monkey, trucking into town from Tuscaloosa, Alabama to the bright lights of Austin, Texas. What could go wrong? And I guess we saw what happened. Or if allegedly what happened.
Apparently a whole lot could go wrong. A kid allegedly going through a couple of gates that they weren't supposed to go through to get to Pole Assassin's
emotional support
monkey, Gia, who has also performed with Pole Assassin. If you're missing the references,
Pole assistant, if you will. A pole assistant.
Very good.
There.
Very nice. Very nice. Pole assistant for the Pole Assassin. If you're missing what's going on here, Jeff Banks's wife was a stripper. So that's where the Pole Assassin comes from, and the monkey is the emotional support animal who has performed
slash assistant
slash money grabber slash whatever,
child biter, whatever.
Yeah, Jeff. They were having a Halloween party. They wanted to do a haunted house, and somehow this kid got back into where the animals are kept, and apparently got his or her, I don't even know what gender the child is that got bit, but it doesn't matter. They got bit by this pet monkey, and it's sort of become, Kerry, you've said it offline, it's sort of like Texas football has become a meme. And I said, well, even more than we have been in the last 11, 12 years. But now it's almost like we're no longer just being laughed at because they can't win football games, and after really talking a big game, excuse me, now it's actually like there's a freaking monkey involved, man.
Yeah, I find this story absolutely hilarious. This story, Texas football has made me happier with this story than they have with their actual play in a long, long time. This story just checks all the boxes for me. It's just for the whole concept, they live out in Westlake or Steiner Ranch or something like that. Can you imagine Like, oh, the new neighbors are moving into town. Oh, he's Sark's highest paid assistant or whatever, the highest paid special teams coach in the country. He's the assistant head coach at the University of Texas. Great family moving into town. And here comes Pole Assassin and Gia the monkey moving in next door. And like, oh, we're having a haunted house thing or whatever. And yeah, and she initially didn't. And what adds to this is like she initially denied it on Twitter. She was like, this is all lies. These are all lies. And then PFT commenter came back and was like, oh, okay, so the monkey's okay, no child was injured, kind of thing, like totally baits her into it. It's what he does.
That's what he does.
Why he's the best at that. And she responds back like, well, the kids shouldn't have been back there. So she went from saying that it was all lies to then say, like, basically just outright saying, like, yeah, a kid got bit by my emotional support monkey at my house on Halloween. And she just tries to continue tweeting through it. She posts the video, like the gate and all this stuff, where the keep out sign looked about as clearly like just hung up as you can imagine. And she even wrote on there, emotional support animal. Like you,
Right.
but what gives me so much like joy out of these types of stories is thinking about the text that Chris Del Conte was receiving that night. Like, it's not so much like the monkey story, all those things. Hopefully the kid's okay. It sounds like, it, according to Paul Assassin, the parents hadn't contacted her or any lawyers or anything yet. But like, I laugh thinking about what Chris Del Conte was receiving on his phone that night. The basketball team, and what talk about timing. The basketball team was playing their like first scrimmage against Texas Lutheran and just destroyed them, which we should be talking more about. But this damn monkey has taken over everything. But like, you think John Bianco, like the like, what is he doing when he's receiving these emails and texts the other night? And of course, her Twitter account gets shut down. Like, those are the types of like, but it took a long time. She just kept going and going before they finally shut the door. But
I feel like that she was not following counsel's advice when putting these videos up, or didn't have counsel at all at the time. And then when she did, they were like, you need to delete that shit, just go dark, do your thing, just radio silent, just no more, don't get baited by a profession. And we love PFT. I don't like a lot about Barstool, but PFT commenter is good hashtag content. Like, the guy's good at what he does. And I want to say, okay, so first of all, her name is Danielle Thomas, Danny Thomas. Okay, we've called her Pole Assassin quite a bit, which was her stage name. Danielle Thomas, Danny Thomas, however you want to go. We're not, just so everybody knows, we're not discriminating against that type of work.
No,
against stripping or sex work or anything like that.
No,
like, that's
not
not what
at
this
all.
is about. This is about the timing of a piss poor football program being involved in a situation like this, where we should be, if a couple of bounces go Texas's way, and by bounces I mean you don't blow 3 second half leads.
Double
This
digit.
could be a double-digit second half leads. This could be a different conversation. This could just be a joke that we're laughing about, which we are, but it's a little bit different now because of the circumstances. And
absolutely.
Like, for me, this is just adding to what this program has become and what Sark's job is going to be to dig out of this. This is, and you said it perfectly, Texas football is a meme. It is a running joke. It is a punchline. Anything that you can think of along those lines right now, that's what Texas football is. It's not a legitimate football program, period. And I don't like saying things like that, obviously.
No, but it's the truth.
But it's the truth. And Sarkisian is going to have his time. He's going to get the time to try to get out of this, to get his guys on campus, to change this country club culture that has infiltrated this place for a long time. And he's going to be able to get his guys in the field. Still has a great recruiting class. And people, kind of shifting into what this means moving forward and where this program is before we really dive a little bit into the Baylor game. Recruits don't necessarily look at things like this as, well, I'm not going to go to Texas because of that.
No. If
So
anything, recruits are going to be asking to meet Gia the monkey.
yeah, yes.
And that would be the best
maybe
way
Miss
for this
Thomas,
program to to turn this thing into a positive. Like, honestly, like we see these like take it and run with it. Have like a stuffed monkey on the sidelines, like the turnover monkey or something. The defense forces a turnover and someone gets the like stuffed animal. They have the turnover chains, all that kind of stuff. Like,
it's already a gimmick. Like, Texas football
yeah,
is already just a gimmick anyway. So why not take it and go a step farther and just embrace it, and I mean, I don't really think that they would do something like that at Texas, but I do think
it would be fun.
Well, that's the thing though, is that if you're going to be a meme, be a fun one.
Like Lane
if you're
Kiffin.
going to be, yes, that's
Lane
a great comparison.
Yeah, he's a guy that like was the butt of every single joke. I mean, deservedly, for the Joey Freshwater stuff, getting fired on the tarmac, the way that he left Tennessee, like all those things has, just this one thing after another with Lane Kiffin. He's embraced it. It's like, when Ole Miss was at Tennessee a few weeks ago and they were throwing all the bottles and all those things at him, and he posted the tweet, like, as he like tried to catch that bottle or whatever that was flying, like, yeah, I asked for one for the road kind of thing. Like, that's a bit that wouldn't play at Texas, like Lane Kiffin's bit, but that works perfect. Like, he has turned it into a brand. He's turned it into an identity, and where he goes to coach play somewhere like Ole Miss, who kind of has their own, they had like the, what was it? The Sark thing going for a while. Like, they've had like, they kind of embrace those kinds of things. They're not afraid of it. At least it's like, hey, it's Ole Miss, and
but the thing,
you're right.
Texas,
Texas isn't going to do that, but that's what there's a difference.
No, but Texas isn't afraid to do that stuff. They're just not going to do it. But what it does seem like Texas is afraid of is somebody going into that locker room and being a leader. Because without Sam Ehlinger or without a Joseph Osai, without guys on that field that are natural born leaders, that are example setters, that are just, Sam Cosmi, who got through in spite of coaching or a lack of coaching and development, just had the drive to get. I don't see the drive on this team right now. I see some talented players in a couple of different spots.
That's a perfect segue for us to get the hell out of this monkey stuff and leave it where it is, because I think you hit on it a second ago. The whole aspect with this monkey story isn't so much about what it is in its own thing. Like, if this happened at Bama during an 8-0 type season, okay. It's a little bit of a joke for a minute, goes away. It falls into kind of this context that we're seeing with this lack of leadership from the players and kind of their like own accountability on the field. And like, we've been a little bit more critical of Sark lately in terms of how I know he's trying to go with like the even keel kind of, things are going to be okay. Like, this is adversity, those kinds of things, and trying to be inspiring and trying to be positive. But he's kind of treading the line a little bit, right? Like, he's not going the opposite side where Tom Herman's like, winning's hard, or a general fan doesn't know what they're talking about. He's kind of going the other way with this, like, does there seem to be a lack of urgency for you from the coaching staff? And does that play into how the players respond leadership wise? Because before you answer, like, I just kind of feel like if there was more adversity coming from the coaches, maybe some of these natural leaders would start to emerge and help push forward the players. Where if the coaches are kind of saying, hey, things are okay, does that not put the proper kind of pressure on leadership to emerge within the locker room?
We've made comments about Steve Sarkisian judging his locker room, sort of overvaluing certain things about his locker room and this roster. I'm sort of becoming of the opinion that Steve Sarkisian knows exactly what's in this locker room.
He has to now, right? 8 games
And-
in, he has to.
And there aren't those, the leaders aren't there. So for him to be able to attack that way in terms of trying to light a fire, there's nobody to light a fire under in this locker room right now. You've got a guy who is going to probably be a first round NFL pick in Bijan Robinson. You've got a guy in Overshown who's a Buckus Award finalist. And I was kind of harsh in the group text with Mike when he pointed that out. But Overshown, I mean,
I tend to agree with you there though on that. Like, I know he's a good player, but
yeah, but
Butkus
again,
Award
like,
semifinalist are like,
he's a good player
right.
when he's on the field, and he is the best thing that defense has in terms of somebody that leads by example. You know, every week we see the rundown of defensive output and who makes the plays, and he's a pardon me, he's at the top of that list, but that's because there's nobody else on that defense
Right.
that can even think about stepping
Right.
up consistently. So I think, to your point, Sark knows exactly what's in this locker room. And if he goes around trying to light fires under people, the only thing he's going to burn down is that locker room.
Right.
He's not going to, there aren't going to be any like
Right.
aha moments at this point.
Yeah.
So you know what he's doing though is when he's traveling on Thursday nights to go watch these high school games, like we've seen on Twitter, you know, we see a lot of pictures of him traveling during the week.
Jeff Banks, those two,
Yep.
It's him and Jeff Banks on the road, which
exactly. So we
tie
see
that
them,
all in.
we see them out and about, and he's there. And you know what he's saying? He's saying, "Hey man, you see this locker room right now? Do you see what we're working with? Do you want to play now? Come play. Are you going to be a leader for me? Are you going to step into this role and be the person that I can depend on? Be the person that your teammates can depend on? Because I got spots for that. I got plenty of room for that. Come on. Come to Texas. Come to Austin and be the person in that locker room that's going to lead by example. That's going to let me live up to my all gas, no brakes mantra as a head coach, because I'm not having to be the person to fire these guys up. I can focus on all the rest of this and know that the teammates are going to hold each other accountable and that are going to get the job done on the field when it needs to happen. And that's what I think is going on right now. So
yeah,
I
that's a good point.
I don't think there's a place necessarily for him to hit the panic button.
Well, what is there to be urgent about?
Season. Exactly.
Like
yes.
The Big 12 race is over. You know, that's done. There's no you know, technicalities, all that kind of whatever. It's over. Texas is not going to make the Big 12 championship. So that fantasy that could maybe still, oh, well, if such and such lose 3 games, it's not happening. So what is there to be urgent over? And I think that that's a great point in terms of if you're building into next year, if you're looking at who's going to be coming back into next season. I mean, what a great audition time to kind of sit back as the head coach and watch what players do over these next 4 games in terms of who's still showing up, who's still invested, and who are some players that you can probably start nudging towards the portal a little bit and say, we're not seeing the response from you over these last 4 games when there's really nothing left to play for. Even though there's stuff to build for the future, like the heads aren't there. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's quite a few of those players, honestly. And I think we'll see a lot of turnover from this roster come the spring. I think Sark will attack the portal and bring in some depth. And, you know, we'll see what the recruiting classes bring. But like, no, I think that's a great point. Why start lighting fires when there's really no use to? at this point. If the players aren't, and you mentioned the guys like Bijan, like, people compare him to Ricky, like who was another quiet, kind of soft-spoken kind of guy. His play spoke loudly, but he's not a rah-rah, like rally the troops kind of guy. Even Casey Thompson, the players love him, all that kind of stuff. You don't see that from him on the sideline when things are going wrong. If the defense needs a big stop and it's a timeout, you don't see him on the sideline, like trying to rally the defense and doing that stuff. It's not really his personality. We know it's not Hudson Cards. So like, there's no, but like, that's just the personality of this team. And that's what I think Sark needs to start bringing in. Like you said, like guys like that will come in and start rattling some cages a little bit and kind of doing that work for the coaching staff of lighting those fires. And I don't think we're going to see it between now and the end of the season. To me, this team, and this isn't a reflection on Sark, this is his first year, and you can go with the whole, like, these aren't his guys bit. So I'm going to kind of, I'm not going to put this too much on the coaching staff, I guess, but like, man, this team is mentally soft.
Yep.
They fold so easy at any, like, you talk about a team in 3 straight second halves now with double-digit leads that when something goes wrong, it just they fold. And you want to I'll criticize the Dicker fake punt call. That was bad. I'll put that on the coaching staff. But why do you help your team there a little bit, coaches? You know how mentally weak they are. Like, so why give Baylor the ball back at midfield? But that's a different. But like, I don't think it's going to be the case this week in Ames. To talk about this coming Saturday, I don't know if there's going to be a double-digit lead for Texas to blow up there. Iowa State's a 7-point favorite, and I don't know if Texas is going to be in a position to have a double-digit lead. If so, great. But I mean, we've seen what this team does in second halves.
The scheme is there, right? And there are players that can make plays. You talked about Bijan. If you're not that rah-rah guy, then you go out and you take somebody's job. And that's what Xavier Worthy's done.
Right.
Who is going to probably be a first-team all Big 12 wide receiver as a freshman.
He should be.
And
actually, on Xavier, real quick, before we move on about the leadership thing, he's one of the only guys, I mean, besides his play on the field, when they show the sideline, when Texas is like, you can tell like his facial expressions. You can tell how much it's actually like how much it pains him to see what's going on out there. Like, I know he's a true freshman, but he has it looks like he's got the mentality to be one of those guys over the next couple of years that is going to start being comfortable getting in the faces of some guys.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I just want to say, like, you can tell, and I don't know, I feel like watching those games, I go, this guy does give a shit. He does care.
Yeah.
And I can't say that for everybody else.
As a true freshman, it's hard to step up into that role and get into a guy's face and be like, what the hell are you doing, man? Because he's a true freshman. And these guys that have it ingrained in them that I have a job. I'm going to be here I'm going to be on the field. I'm
Joshua
at Texas.
Moore.
Who gives a shit? That's a tough one for me, man, because it just feels like he's completely, I'm not saying Josh Moore is checked out, because I think he's trying, but something's not clicking with him right now, man.
No, I don't know if I agree. I don't think he's checked out. You think about his story at Texas, the suspension, all those things, being able to work his way back onto the team after being suspended. Like, a guy that like was not given another opportunity kind of thing, but he paid his penance for what he did, and he was able to prove himself and rejoin the team. You'd think that a guy with that wouldn't want to blow the opportunity. And I don't think that's in his character. I think from what we've seen from him, like, so I don't know if he's not checked. I wouldn't say he's checked out mentally, but just something, like you said, is just not clicking there. And I don't know what, maybe scheme, maybe he's overthinking routes. Maybe there's something to that, to where he's not just focusing on playing ball, but like something's not right with him.
To me, that's a big That's a mental thing. That's an overcome, trying to do too much, thinking you
Right.
have to make, oh my God, if I have to make this catch, I have to do everything that I can because other guys aren't doing it, and you're getting in your own head. And that's what I think's
Right.
happened with Joshua Moore right now. That's a guy that I hope finishes the season strong.
He needs to.
Yeah, he
If
needs
Texas
to.
wants to finish out strong this season, he has to. Worthy, I think, is going to do his thing,
Yeah, he will.
but Moore
But
has to step it up.
But you look at guys. Let's talk about the defense quickly. When you got guys like Ray Thornton, who is to me a net zero. I don't understand the insistence on playing some of these guys as much as they're getting played. It's tough. It's tough when I do feel like that maybe Sark. I hope he's not like protecting guys and not putting them into situations. So when things do start to turn around, they don't have like oh man, well this happened last year, and I got to try to avoid that. I don't think that's what's going on.
Who do you
But
think would be in that category? Like, who do you think he's trying to protect if that's the case? Just some of the young guys, trying to keep them from like
yeah,
getting beat down too much mentally.
like I don't know why Luke Brockermeyer. Not that I'm sure Luke Brockermeyer is a good kid,
Goes to
and
class,
yeah,
brings his hard hat
yeah,
to work every
brings his
day, and
lunch pail, yeah, and all that stuff.
first in the gym.
Shoots good free throws, all that shit. But what's the point right now? Like there are metrics that say he's productive. My eyes tell me he is not a starting linebacker in the Big 12.
No.
Okay, like there's a difference here, and there when you have guys like Josh Thompson who have underperformed and underimpressed and talk a big game and have made some plays. I'm not saying
Hey man,
Thompson's
it's all
entire
about
season.
vibes
Right. Yeah. Well, with
with
him,
Josh. It's
with
all about
Josh
vibes.
Thompson, it seems like there's a lot more vibes than there is actual production. And that's a problem for me. And we expected big things out of Josh Thompson this year. And I think during the preview show, for one of us, he was a guy that we pointed at as being, somebody that was the one to look out for. And for me, Moro Ojimo was my guy, who is totally underperformed. And I don't know if that's a schematic thing. I don't know if that's an attitude thing. I don't know what it is, but he just doesn't seem to have that, how strongly he finished the season. As much as we bag on Tom Herman's teams fought.
See, that's where I'm hesitant to blame the scheme here, because these guys, Coburn, how do you go? I like this. I don't, it's not like he's being put, this isn't, Todd Orlando putting, Osai at, nickelback or whatever the hell position he was putting him into, like, and then, Chris Ash comes in and puts him on the edge and the guy ends up tearing it up. Like that's not this case. If you're a disruptor, you're a disruptor on the defensive line, whatever technique or whatever they're putting in it, like he's just not there. But Tom Herman's teams never got blown, like, never got blown out. They were always, you never saw them fold like this in fourth quarters.
No.
Ever.
No.
And the conditioning change, the strength and conditioning program from one season to the next is not going to make that much of a difference in being like, oh, well, this team, there's a team that would play in the fourth quarter. They would lose. They'd find unique ways to lose, but they wouldn't fold that way. It doesn't change that. This is the same group. It doesn't change that much to the next season. So you don't want to be like, oh, they're just not in shape. They're not conditioned to go four quarters. That ain't it.
No.
There's something else going on.
Yeah. And, like Ojimo, who was out of position for a while under the last regime. And one of the reasons why I was so high on him coming in was I thought moving him down inside to be that disruptor, to be able to keep linemen off of linebackers, I thought he'd lead the team in sacks. I thought that he would be a guy that would be that disruptor. Just not seeing that. And he's somebody that if he doesn't next year as a senior, like as soon as these other guys start to get in and get more playing time or show up on campus, whatever it is, Ojimo is going to be one of those cats that we might be talking about next year. Is like, man, what happened to this guy? Or we might not even be talking about him at all.
He might lose his
because
job.
He might lose his gig. And
Now,
I don't know what it is, but it's not a good look.
That said, if we get into next season and we're seeing guys like Brockermeyer, I don't know how much eligibility does Jet Bush have left at this point, but like you start seeing some of these guys not getting moved out of the lineups, even though that's where the concern for me starts to set in. This is year one. He's learning what he's got with his team. If we go through another off season, we start getting into next season and it goes, oh, well, Ojimo is going to start over. Oh, I don't know. I mean,
Vernon Broughton.
Or, like you start seeing all these, like, I don't want to say like playing the favorite card kind of thing, but these guys, like the better players aren't seeing the field at the expense of them. Then I'm starting to get concerned about how he's running the program. Like, I mean, even there's a little bit of concern about it now. I mean, you talk about Brockermeyer, we talk about Bush, all those things. Like, there's some other young players on this team on the defensive side of the ball that can start seeing some snaps. They need to.
Benda, Barron, like there's guys that need to be
Sorrell,
on the
a guy we
more.
talked about earlier in the season.
Exactly.
Like these guys need to play for multiple reasons. For one, to get them a lot of reps. 2, to get them on film so you see what you got. And 3, to keep them in the loop and keep them engaged. You don't want all your underclassmen hitting the portal feeling like, oh, well, I didn't get a chance under this coaching regime. There's multiple reasons why. Like, there's nothing to play for anymore. Play the guys.
Yeah. And I don't think Sark's wired that way. I don't think he's wired and there's nothing to play for. He still thinks this is an 8-4 football team. And I get it. Like, you don't get to that level without thinking that you can win and that you can get out of every hole. We saw it with Mac Brown. No, I can fix this. I can fix this. Well, Mac, you were past the point of fixing it by the time your run ended. It's like Tom Herman. Well, I can fix it. No, dude.
When you have to say that,
bridge. Yeah. When you say I can fix this, it's probably past the point of fixing.
Right.
And we're in year one with Sark. He's going to put all of his stuff into place. And I agree with what you said about when we're talking about the management of this roster and this depth chart, which is still mind-boggling that there were no changes on the depth chart coming out for this game.
Talk about that way to light a fire under some guys, though, to kind of be like, we've lost 3 in a row. I'm making some changes here because you guys aren't performing.
And maybe that happens against Kansas. Maybe that's a game if Texas goes up to Ames and gets Peter rolled and like it's possible. Iowa State hasn't been that top 10 team that we thought they might be going into the season, but they're still a really good team and they're with a really, really good head coach at the helm there. And it's possible to go up there and rekindle Iowa State's season, if you will, by beating down a Texas team, because Iowa State still does have a shot.
They do
to get into the Big 12
They need a little help,
game.
but they're still alive. They're more alive than Texas is.
They're absolutely more. They still have a shot here, and they have Oklahoma on their schedule coming up in a few weeks too. But this is, again, when you're Texas and everybody has the game circled on the calendar, they're going to be up for this. They beat
maybe the last visit to Ames, depending on how things with the SEC shake down. Like, there's a lot for Iowa State to play for on Saturday.
They're coming off of a loss to West Virginia, who's not great, but that doesn't really bode well for me in terms of Texas going to Morgantown later in the season either. And I think Campbell's gonna, that you beat Oklahoma State, and then you go to Morgantown and lose to West Virginia. Iowa State is going to be ready to play. They're going to be ready to play and not have a letdown at home against a Texas team that on paper, are they better than? Maybe not. but they know that they're playing, even coming off of a loss, they've played better than Texas
Well,
has this year at different times. So, I mean,
listening to the local show today, like Bucky mentioned, they were discussing this matchup and how West Virginia gashed that defense pretty well. And how like, oh, well, maybe there's some space for Texas to move against this Iowa State defense. And Bucky made a good point about like, we can break all those kinds of things down. We can look at all that. But one thing that we know about this Iowa State team going into Saturday, they're not going to fold in the fourth quarter.
right.
They're going to be there. And what about Texas?
You can't say the same about Texas.
Exactly. So like, Iowa State's going to play a 4-quarter game. Can Texas? And given what we've seen, I'm saying no. We've seen 3 games in a row of it. Honestly, more than that. We talked about the TCU game. They almost let the TCU game get away.
Matt Campbell's not going to let them play 2 poor fourth quarters in a row.
No.
Which is what happened in Morgantown against West Virginia. He's not going to let it happen. So if Texas doesn't get out and get out big and figure out a way to hold on, Iowa State is not going to play that poorly 2 weeks in a row. I know they're not as good as we all thought they were going to be in the preseason. I get that. But that's still a very well coached team. And it's one of those things where if Texas goes up there and pulls this off somehow, to me, it still doesn't redeem a lot of all the things that have gone wrong this season. I thought Texas would go up and take care of business against Baylor. I know you didn't, but I thought they would. And now I'm sitting here thinking like, now you got to go to Iowa State and play against that team that wants to just beat your ass. No, man, I'm not feeling good about this one at all. And we'll see how it goes, but it's not, to me, it's just, there's too much quit in this team and not enough want
That's
to.
exactly. I think you made a good point about like, if Texas goes and wins out the rest of this schedule, then maybe it does put a little bit of a perspective on this 3-game, skid and collapse job they've done every week. You kind of go, okay, well, yeah, maybe they were a few plays away from being whatever record. But I just don't see that happening because at this point, I don't see this team like mentally coming together, mentally figuring it out somehow after 8 games. And
right.
Kansas is Kansas. I'll reserve my thought. But, especially after the way they played against Oklahoma, but like, yeah. Like K-State is another tough one. Like going on the road to Morgantown is what Texas has to do in a few weeks as well. We'll see what happens this Saturday and we'll kind of call the games as we see them coming along. But like, yeah, I'm not picking Texas to win this game. I don't know about the spread though. I don't know about this. Almost feels like I almost feel like Iowa State's going to win the game, but not by 7. This feels like it's going to be one of those kind of like borderline heartbreakers for Texas where they're in the game, whatever. They just couldn't close well, that's what they've been doing, but like they just
Iowa State,
couldn't get across the line.
Like a 34-31 score. Texas is driving down in the fourth quarter to try to either tie or take the lead. And then they turn the ball over. They shoot themselves in the foot with an early holding penalty or getting a delay of game out of a kickoff or coming out of a timeout or some undisciplined shit that they've been pulling, like to shoot themselves in the foot. And that's coaching and that's discipline and that's guys not being aware of what's going on. And that can't happen in Ames. And it's just, it's a night game. It's finally not an 11 o'clock start. So again, for whatever reason, that may change the way that this football team approaches stuff, but they cannot go in there unfocused and unready to play because Matt Campbell-led football team will put their foot on you and not let go.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. So, well, we'll have a recap for it. It might be another midweek show next week. I'm traveling for family purposes this weekend and we watching the game on the road, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. But hey, basketball's coming up soon, and so we have that in 6 days. We'll see when we get this next show in, but that we might be recapping the season opener And, you know, kind of transitioning into more of that talk as opposed to just watching this football team just fizzle out the last 4 weeks of the season. So
yeah, basketball team looked great in that sort of exhibition matchup. Got to see all the guys you wanted to see play. They are as advertised in terms of talent, in terms of just skill level, in terms of jumping out of the gym, athleticism, and everybody's already starting to sort of know their roles on that team. And it was really good to see. I know it was Texas Lutheran. That's a D3 opponent that, you know,
hey man,
but you get
they got
what you
Texas
get.
in the name. That's a big time
You take-
opponent. You gotta prepare. You know,
Yeah.
they at least have the state. It's not like Abilene is in their name or anything like that. But
We could have ended this show on a positive note, man. Instead, we're getting one shining moment. All right, let's get out of here with that. Let's get out of here.
Let's go before Monkey jumps out and bites me for making that reference.
Let's slip on the banana peel on our way out. All right,
Woo!
thanks for
All
listening,
right,
everybody.
call.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks everybody.
Appreciate
everybody,
it, man. We'll catch you next time.
See y'all.
Hook up.
ATX representing. Fatal, baby.
Rolling on 6 on a Saturday. Can the drip and swing down?